In the crowded landscape of modern celebrity, we are often asked to admire talent, to appreciate artistry, and to acknowledge fame. But with Taylor Swift, we are no longer observing a celebrity. We are observing a seismic economic and cultural force, an entity so powerful that governments track her touring impact and her public appearances move markets. She is not merely the most popular musician of her generation or even the most influential. She is quite simply the architect of a billion-dollar empire built on a foundation of meticulously engineered emotional resonance and shocking business acumen. The numbers are staggering, but the impact is even larger. Time magazine named her the 2023 Person of the Year, recognizing her as a cultural titan who transcends her industry. Her Eras Tour concert film smashed box office records worldwide, and her mere presence at NFL games has injected unprecedented viewership into the sports world. This is not the accidental success of a gifted performer. This is the result of a deliberate, multi-layered strategy executed over 2 decades. The polite narrative suggests Taylor Swift is the relatable girl next door who writes candid songs about her life. But the truth, the one we are investigating today, is far more compelling and perhaps even unnerving. Her journey, from a promising country teenager in Nashville to the cultural nirvana of a global phenomenon, is the greatest case study in modern entertainment strategy. Every breakup, every public feud, every change in genre, every surprise album, drop it was all, in retrospect, a perfectly calibrated step in a methodical ascent. This is the hidden history, the shocking blueprint behind Taylor Swift's absolute global domination, and we are going to dissect the 7 critical acts that defined her reign. To understand the scope of Taylor Swift's current power, we must rewind to the shocking, almost unsettlingly self-aware beginning. Taylor Swift did not stumble into success. She engineered her entry point. She arrived in Nashville not as a hopeful singer, but as a strategic anomaly. The common route for young artists was to sing songs written by industry professionals. Swift's critical initial move was to insist on being a songwriter first and a singer second. This was a tactical maneuver that immediately positioned her with a gravitas and authenticity that her pop peers lacked. The music industry quickly realized they weren't dealing with a typical teenager. They were dealing with a young woman who knew exactly how she wanted her narrative constructed. She understood that in the world of country music, storytelling and relatability were currency. Her first albums, particularly Fearless, were a masterclass in highly specific yet universally accessible songwriting. She didn't just sing about high school. She sang about the boy on the football team, the tear stains on the guitar, the awkward dance floor moments. This specificity was calculated. It created an illusion of intimacy, making millions of young listeners feel like she was reading directly from their diary. She established a bond with her audience, the future Swifties, that was more personal and therefore more enduring than any other artist of her time. This early strategy effectively neutralized the industry's ability to dismiss her as a manufactured pop product. The strategy extended beyond the songs. She was the ideal intersection point. Country enough to be endorsed by the authentic music community, but pop enough to cross over to the massive mainstream market. She was bridging a cultural chasm. Crucially, she was also strategically building an untouchable public persona, the charming, slightly awkward, eternally grateful good girl. This early shield of innocence was perhaps her most valuable asset. It allowed her to navigate the treacherous media landscape of young fame while maintaining a core sense of purity. When early feuds or criticisms arose, they were easily deflected because the established public narrative was that she was the victim, the misunderstood artist simply trying to tell her story. This persona was consistently reinforced in every interview, every acceptance speech, and every social media post. It wasn't just branding, it was character development on a global scale. This period was about laying the commercial groundwork and, more importantly, establishing an emotional contract with her fans that promised unfiltered honesty. That contract was the Trojan horse she would later use to launch a complete takeover of the pop world. The early strategic move to write her own material and control her own voice meant that by the time she was ready to pivot, she already had an unshakable foundation of artistic credibility. She wasn't just signed to a label. She was a partner in her own brand management. Her ability to transition from a small-town girl with a guitar to an arena-filling phenomenon before the age of 20 showcased a shocking level of foresight. She recognized the limitations of the country genre's ceiling and began preparing her exit before she even hit her peak within it. The groundwork for global domination was meticulously poured during this Nashville phase. It taught her how to leverage vulnerability for mass appeal and how to use her personal life and the subsequent media coverage as the primary promotional engine for her music. She was perfecting the cycle. Life happens, Taylor writes about it, the media reacts, the fans consume the narrative, and the album sells. This self-perpetuating machine was the true legacy of her Nashville years, preparing the way for the calculated explosion that was about to follow. The innocence was beautiful, but the calculation was breathtaking. If the Nashville era was the meticulous setup, the 1989 era was the calculated invasion. By 2014, Taylor Swift had achieved everything possible within the country sphere, but she recognized that true, undisputed global stardom required shedding the acoustic guitar entirely and embracing the pure, maximalist power of pop. This was arguably the riskiest, yet most shocking and pivotal move of her career. It was a conscious decision to abandon the genre that birthed her for the biggest possible audience. 1989 was not an evolutionary album. It was a revolution, a deliberate statement that she was no longer playing by Nashville's rules. The strategy here was simple but brutal. Saturate the mainstream until she became synonymous with pop music itself. She recruited A-list producers like Max Martin, the undisputed king of global pop hits, signaling that her goal was now strictly commercial dominance on a global scale. The marketing strategy accompanying 1989 was equally calculated. This was the era where Taylor Swift fully embraced the public perception of her romantic life as a promotional tool. She had perfected the art of generating content through personal narratives, but now she broadened the scope. She constructed the infamous squad, a rotating cast of A-list supermodels, actresses, and fellow artists. This was a brilliant, strategic move that did three things. First, it elevated her personal brand from relatable singer to untouchable lifestyle icon. Second, it generated endless, positive, aspirational media coverage. And third, it implicitly protected her from criticism, suggesting that anyone who questioned her was fighting against a united, powerful front of successful women. The sheer volume of high-profile friendships and public appearances ensured that she was impossible to ignore, solidifying her status as the queen of pop culture commentary, even when she wasn't releasing music. Crucially, this period also saw the development of her adversarial relationship with the media, which she quickly learned to weaponize. Where once she was the innocent victim, she began using the media's relentless scrutiny of her dating life as creative fodder. The single blank space was not just a pop song, it was a shocking, self-aware meta-commentary, acknowledging and satirizing the man-eater narrative the tabloids had constructed for her. By ironically embracing the caricature, she disarmed her critics and demonstrated a shrewd level of control over her own public perception. This pivot to pop was not just about the synthesizers and drum machines. It was about shifting her strategic position from the slightly marginalized country star who crossed over to the undeniable, central figure of global pop culture. She didn't just join the pop world, she restructured it, ensuring that her personal dramas, whether manufactured or real, became the engine that drove every commercial cycle. The 1989 era was the moment the artist became the mogul, transitioning from seeking fame to dictating the terms of fame itself. Every brilliant strategy includes a retreat before the final assault, and for Taylor Swift, that retreat was the 2016 to 2017 period, culminating in the Reputation era. This phase was defined by a shocking, near-total vanishing act from the public eye, a strategic vacuum designed to maximize the impact of her eventual return. Following a series of highly publicized and intensely damaging feuds and controversies, her carefully curated good girl persona lay in tatters. The media narrative had flipped, painting her as calculating, manipulative, and often disingenuous. Most stars in this situation would attempt a soft comeback, but Swift chose annihilation and rebirth. She recognized that the only way to silence the noise was to withdraw completely, forcing the world to rely solely on speculation, thus rebuilding her mystique. The sheer audacity of the Reputation rollout remains one of the most effective strategic resets in modern entertainment. After months of silence, her social media was wiped clean, replaced by cryptic, unsettling video clips of a snake, the very symbol her detractors had weaponized against her. This was the moment of strategic transformation. She wasn't fighting the label of villain, she was claiming it. By embracing the snake imagery, she stole the narrative weapon from her enemies. The Reputation album and subsequent tour were a deliberate rejection of the 1989 era's polished, sun-drenched pop. It was dark, aggressive, and fiercely protective of her privacy. The core strategy of this era was control. She gave almost no traditional interviews. She communicated only through her music and her highly controlled personal secret sessions with fans. This fostered an intense us-against-the-world mentality among the Swifties, tightening the emotional bond. The fans felt they were the only ones truly being let in, isolating her from the hostile mainstream press. This period was a masterclass in weaponizing perceived victimhood. Swift turned her public humiliation into the defining theme of her new artistic chapter, transforming personal grievances into blockbuster commercial success. The narrative shifted from Taylor Swift as manipulative to Taylor Swift as a resilient artist fighting back against a brutal, biased media. She didn't just survive the scandal, she utilized the residual cultural energy from the chaos to fuel her next creative cycle. Reputation was a calculated, necessary act of narrative self-defense that proved she could not only withstand a critical attack, but could monetize the very damage inflicted upon her. It taught the industry a valuable lesson. If the narrative is out of your control, destroy the old one and build a dramatic new one from the ashes. She emerged from the shadows stronger, wealthier, and with a fan base more fiercely loyal than ever, ready for the next phase of global takeover. While the Reputation era was about artistic and personal control, the succeeding phase, the strategic re-recording of her first 6 albums, is perhaps the most audacious, multi-billion-dollar power play in the modern music industry. This wasn't just a creative exercise. It was a shocking, unprecedented move to seize commercial ownership of her historical catalog after the master recordings were sold without her consent. Swift transformed a complex, highly legalistic business dispute into a massive, fan-driven cultural movement, reinforcing the core narrative that has defined her success. The artist fighting for her creative rights against the powerful corporate machine. The genius lies not merely in the act of re-recording, but in the strategic marketing surrounding the release of Taylor's versions. By positioning the new albums as the definitive artistic statement, the version she intended the fans to hear, she immediately rendered the original masters commercially and culturally inferior. She effectively trained her massive, devoted fan base to boycott the original recordings, shifting billions in streaming and sales revenue away from her former record label and into her own coffers. This was a calculated and public display of commercial power, demonstrating that her influence over consumer behavior was greater than that of major music corporations. The release strategy was equally shrewd, often including from-the-vault tracks previously unreleased songs written during the album's original era. These weren't just bonus tracks, they were essential artifacts, forcing completionist fans and casual listeners alike to engage deeply with the re-recordings. This tactic brilliantly merged nostalgia with novelty, ensuring enormous media coverage and chart dominance for albums that were, technically, over a decade old. The Taylor's version strategy redefined the relationship between artist and industry. It served as a loud public warning shot to every label and executive. Modern artists, particularly those with devoted fan bases, no longer have to accept the historical terms of engagement. It fundamentally altered the value proposition of master recordings versus publishing rights in the digital age. Furthermore, it deepened the parasocial relationship with her fans. By framing the battle as a shared struggle, the artist and the Swifties against the corporate antagonist, she provided her audience with a tangible mission: to stream and buy her versions. This solidified their identity not just as consumers, but as active participants and protectors of her legacy. This extraordinary move of business warfare was disguised as an artistic endeavor, proving that Taylor Swift's greatest strength is her ability to turn corporate friction into mass-market emotional engagement, creating a revenue stream where, for any other artist, there would only be a legal headache. We now arrive at the culmination of the strategic journey, the moment Taylor Swift transitioned from a global superstar into a figure of total cultural and economic hegemony. This phase is characterized by an unprecedented scale of operation, where her commercial power is so vast it impacts national economies. At the center of this dominance is the Eras Tour, which is not just a concert series but a financial and cultural singularity. The tour's structure, spanning her entire career, is a calculated fulfillment of the emotional contract she signed with the fans in the Nashville years. It is a live, physical affirmation of the shared journey, rewarding the loyalty of the Swifties and ensuring maximum ticket demand globally. The sheer economic output of the tour, generating billions and creating Taylornomics, is the ultimate proof that her artistic strategy has yielded shocking financial returns. The tour is so successful that her concert film, Taylor Swift: The Eras Tour, shattered global box office records, further monetizing the live experience and transforming a concert into a major cinematic event, another strategic first. But the final, most recent element of her dominance is the calculated expansion of her brand beyond the music sphere entirely. The high-profile relationship with NFL star Travis Kelce is a strategic masterstroke, whether intentional or organic. This pairing introduced Taylor Swift to a massive, previously untapped demographic, mainstream sports audiences. Her presence at NFL games immediately correlated with historic spikes in game viewership, generating billions in free media exposure for both her brand and the NFL itself. She bridged the most significant cultural gaps in American media: pop, film, and football. This integration solidifies her position not just as a musician, but as a central, unavoidable figure in global lifestyle and entertainment. She is not reacting to culture, she is creating the focal point around which culture now revolves. The announcement of her new album, The Tortured Poets Department, made during a massive televised event, the Grammy Awards, further confirms this strategic reality. She commands attention whenever she chooses, proving that her career cycles are now cultural events in themselves. Her power is no longer derived solely from the songs, but from the cumulative weight of her strategic narrative. She has managed to maintain the illusion of the vulnerable, relatable songwriter while operating with the ruthless efficiency of a Fortune 500 CEO. The era of cultural hegemony is defined by Taylor Swift's shocking ability to operate at the highest levels of commerce and pop culture simultaneously, without sacrificing the intimacy that her fan base demands. She is the ultimate product of her own making, having strategically controlled every pivot, every scandal, and every narrative twist to achieve total, global domination. We have charted the astonishing journey from the promising young songwriter in Nashville to the undisputed architect of a global billion-dollar empire. Taylor Swift's rise was not a happy accident or the simple triumph of talent. It was the result of a meticulously planned, shocking strategy of narrative control, commercial audacity, and emotional engineering. From the calculated authenticity of her early country albums, through the risky pivot to pure pop with 1989, the dramatic strategic withdrawal and rebirth of Reputation, and the unprecedented legal and commercial power play of the Taylor's Version campaign, every stage was a deliberate action designed to maximize artistic autonomy and financial reward. She has proven that in the modern digital age, the most valuable commodity is not just music, but the continuous, compelling, and controlled narrative surrounding the artist. Taylor Swift has redefined the power dynamic in the entertainment industry. She is the ultimate master strategist, a blueprint for future celebrities who seek not just fame, but ownership and systemic influence. Her legacy will not just be measured in Grammys or sold-out stadiums, but in the shocking realization that she taught an entire generation how to turn personal vulnerability into impenetrable corporate strength. She showed us that the girl next door can also be the most ruthless and brilliant mogul in the room. Her domination is complete, and the most compelling question now is not what she will do next, but how the world will adapt to the standards of power she has irrevocably set. What do you believe is the most shocking or brilliant strategic move Taylor Swift has ever made? Was it the risk of abandoning country music, the audacity of re-recording her catalog, or the sheer scale of the Eras Tour? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to keep dissecting the hidden histories and shocking strategies of celebrity power, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Thank you for joining us on Starlight Remains.